5 seconds and I will kick off. We'll see the streaming in the top right left-hand corner or something. Here we go. Hi, my name is Casey Berman, and I am one of the hosts of the Octopus Movement podcast. Welcome. This is where we dive into the world of nonlinear with the founding members, all of the founding members of the Octopus Movement. Today, I'm honored to be speaking with one of our founding members, David Good, from the swing state and the home of my parents, Michigan. David is the founder of the International Friend Connection and the Friend Magnet. And oh yeah, by the way, is a 3 times Presidential Medal recipient. He's focused on helping people in so many ways, and particularly solving the social isolation and loneliness crisis that continues to this day in this country, in this world. It was exacerbated by COVID, of course, but it's something that I know we've been dealing with for many years. And he's inspired by the goal of helping and connecting 1 million people over the next 10 years. David, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here today, and also a pleasure to meet you, Casey.
Yeah, real pleasure. I'm honored to always, meet the founding members of the Octopus Movement. I do this for the movement, but I'm doing it for myself. I mean, it is just so fantastic to meet so many people. So many unique people, and you have such a story. So, let's just dive in. As you write on your LinkedIn profile, you had a software development career, successful software development career, taken away from you by a car accident, a subsequent illness, and I don't want to pry too much at all about that. If you'd like to talk about it for everyone, that's fine. But I don't really want to pry too much there, but I do.
That's okay. I'm pretty open about my story. Okay. I know a lot of people aren't, but I've been able to use my story to kind of help and heal a lot of other people that also have wanted to give up in life. But so I was a successful software developer over the years, had worked for other companies, had my own freelancing business, and then had a car accident a long time ago. Walked away, but injured my neck. So every time I was at the computer, would just be in a ton of pain. And then eventually that injury got exacerbated so much that I had to quit totally in 2016. And that year was like almost a year of like endless pain every day. I see my neurologist, migraines 30 days of the month, but just about every day for months on end. He just wanted to about give up. So I had to give up all that. And then I've struggled with also days of what seemed like endless depression. Having refractory depression also, struggling with that a lot of my life. Also dealt with, when I was a kid, a lot of severe bullying, made me kind of dislike people and not like people at all. And kind of the final thing was, so a couple of deaths in the family during 2010 made me hit rock bottom in 2011. And I knew I had to do something else. So I reached out for the right help. And a long story short is I became a people person. I went from not liking people at all to loving people, and to having this big goal of wanting to help people overcome social anxiety and solve the social isolation and loneliness crisis. Because after I had that car accident and I had to go on disability, I was so ashamed of myself for losing my livelihood. And I'd been back to work for a year or two at a time, but that injury would always get exacerbated. My health would always get worse. That depression would come back, and I'd have to quit for a while. And I had such a feeling of shame from that, not being able to pursue the career that I built up and was born to do and was good at.
Would you say that shame? So thank you for all that. Would you say that shame was due to the fact that your identity was tied to this job, and all of a sudden you couldn't do the job anymore?
That too. I'd always had a long sense of shame because, being born neurodivergent, I was always the weird kid, and there weren't diagnoses much back then. Yeah. So I would just thought there was something wrong with me. It's like, why could my brain make all these connections that other people couldn't see, and then they'd make fun of you for it? But eventually you'd kind of turn out to be right because of how my brain was different. But the thing was, so it was just real rough growing up there. I'd had this sense of shame that I was different, I was bad, I was broken, there was something wrong with me. And then once I got my career taken, more shame that I couldn't pursue my dreams. And eventually what I found out, shame's kind of a useless emotion. Guilt, on the other hand, can be useful. If you hurt someone, tells you need to make it right and do something right. But that shame, that feeling that you are bad, is a useless emotion, and it holds so many people back in life.
You know, David R. Hawkins, the psychologist, and he's written a lot of books, and he passed away a number of years ago, but he talked about this sort of ladder of consciousness. Love is up at the top, and courage is sort of in the middle. And one of them is anger. And he said, similar to guilt, he said, anger, you know, is not a great emotion to have, but it's still productive. You can still be driven by anger to go do something.
Yeah, it can push you forward to get out of your situation.
That's right. Shame, though, and things like that, that's really just looking inward and continuing to kind of poke yourself internally with that kind of saying the lack of self-worth. You know, a question just came in. Do you find that people who overcome involuntary challenges are distinctly different in their approach to life and problems? And that sort of jives with the question that I had was, you know, how do you describe your life prior to the accident and the illness? And how do you view your life post-accident? I know you're still dealing with things, the depression, being the weird kid, all of that, but was there a different perspective on life post-accident illness as opposed to one before, or was it not that distinct?
Well, yeah, a couple different things. And thanks to our friend Anshar, that's an amazing question. Real quick, I got to thank Anshar for being in the Octopus Movement. And actually what was interesting, it transformed me. I knew I had to become a people person because I could no longer be the tech guy banging away at the computer for 12 days. I surprisingly asked a question of Dave Ramsey when I met him. And he was like, you know, you got to pivot to be in leadership and being more of a people person. I didn't take that advice because people didn't make sense to me. But eventually was able to go on and help tens of thousands of people, and actually earn a pretty prestigious Point of Light award from the Points of Light Foundation, 5 million volunteers over 39 countries. So got recognition in 39 countries. But yeah, Anshar makes a good point. So it was a sink or swim thing. It's like, finally, when I got the right help, it was like, life's been this way in the past, but it doesn't have to be this way in the future. And I kind of use that story when I coach a lot of people or help a lot of people with social anxiety. It's like, we can always choose to learn skills to let us have a better future. The past doesn't matter what happened, but we can step into a new future and go ahead. It's a choice, but you got to know what questions to ask and what choices to make.
Now, what prevents someone? That's a big change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big change. I think logically people get it. Future, past, present, future are all constructs. It's very linear, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people consciously or subconsciously can intellectually get this idea, but that's a big change. And some people will not want to let go of the past, or they still want to complain, or they just don't have the courage to change. What are some examples of people who have, besides yourself, who have really changed and kind of thrown away this identity of the past and change what their future looks like?
So I teach a lot of techniques from acceptance and commitment therapy. And what acceptance commitment therapy says, when we have these overwhelming thoughts and feelings that keep us stuck, we're said to be fused. So a lot of these techniques, what they do is they allow us to get some separation from our thoughts and our emotions, so that we can take those baby steps forward into a new life. A lot of people don't know there's a lot of fear. So I've learned to overcome fear. Like I've learned to overcome my fear of people. So I remember when I went to my first Meetup event, when I found out about Meetup, I shook the whole time, barely said a word, said hi to the organizer, played a board game for a while, and then left. And then many years later, now I got 47 of these groups that I run cities all over the world, virtual and in-person events. And I give a speech in front of hundreds of millions of people. When people used to give me the shakes, I couldn't even say hi to someone. But the thing was, I'll tell you, there's one guy that I worked with about 6 months ago, and I didn't need to work with him for very long. He was in Singapore, and he was a student of my friend Jason Jang, an investor, teaches investment courses. He's like, will you please talk to my student, because right now he doesn't have a money problem. He has an anxiety problem that needs to be fixed first, a social anxiety problem. And I'm like, we haven't officially started the classes yet, but I'll work with him one-on-one. I talked to him for 20 minutes, showed him a lot of my TV interviews, told him my story. And I said, we're going to do something new. Let me know if you've heard about it. We're going to actually forgive ourselves for our past. We're going to, instead of beating ourselves up, we're going to be kind to ourselves. And we're just going to try a little bit to see what can happen. And so after hearing my story, he got real excited, contacted my buddy Jason. He's like, oh, this weekend I'm going to church. And he had been home-ridden for about 12 years before that. So that weekend he did go to church. And then a month later, we get a message from his parents saying they were flabbergasted by how well he was doing. He was walking his dog in crowded dog parks. He was getting his own food at the market. And before someone would walk by the house, he would about have a panic attack. Mm-hmm. And then I just got a message from him last week or the week before. He's like, I just wanted to tell you how I'm doing. He's like, I got baptized. And then he sent me a video. He was reading a speech in front of a crowd of people. And he's like, guess what? I'm excited. I'm going to Malaysia by myself.
Love it.
And I thought my buddy was kind of putting me on, gave me an easy win. But then I got to know this guy and everything about him was true. He was totally lost. But,
there's those moments, such a great story. There's those moments in life where, you can call it aha moment or a first step or a baby step. I'm not an institutionalized religion person, but there is an element of faith. It could be even with the swimming pool or the ocean where you're like, oh, it's cold or I don't want to get in. And there's just that moment where you just got to have some sort of faith it's going to work out. You're not going to be that cold in the water. The water will warm up. And then obviously to more major things than just jumping into a swimming pool. But it seems like there just comes a moment where people make a choice and they say, I'm going to book that ticket to Malaysia or I'm not. And then they book it. Is it safe to say? Do you see that with the people you work with? Yeah.
And it was a choice I had to make too when I finally hit rock bottom with my depression, 2011 or so. Reached out for the right help, and I was able to find a wonderful psychologist with multiple PhDs, theology, psychology, also training in leadership and coaching, and doing acceptance and commitment therapy. And the thing was, she made an argument, and what I found out, all this social stuff, all this learning how to overcome fear, like I was able to overcome severe needle phobia. Now I get 12 shots in my head and neck, no problem at all, every couple months. But I learned it was all a skill you could learn. It's not something you were born with. So being good with people, being social, some people it comes more naturally, but it's all a skill anybody can learn. And so that was the aha moment. And you know what she said to me? I'm like, I don't know if I can change. It seems like this will take a long time. And she's saying, in a couple of years, you're going to be a couple of years older anyways. Wouldn't you rather be a couple of years older and be closer to the life that you want? And now, like, I'm living a life where everywhere I go, I make friends. I got friends so many countries all over the world. And it's like, I get to travel and meet people wherever I go. And I'm living a life I never could have dreamed that so many great people I never could have dreamed.
The guy who was shaking and playing board games by himself is now a ton of friends. So David, there's a book called How to Fly a Horse. It's a great book. It's by the guy who coined the term Internet of Things. And he talks about genius. And what his point is that it's not just that a few people are born with genius and the rest of us are not. He says genius and creativity is in all of us. You just need to exercise the muscle, just like you're saying, like it's a skill. And I think you're saying the same thing. David, I have a question, though. You mentioned, I'm going to parse your words. You mentioned you were at the deep level of depression, and then you took a moment to reach out for help. A lot of people would not reach out for help. They would roll over in bed. They put the pillow over their head. What caused you at that point, when you easily could have just stayed depressed, to actually reach out for help? Do you remember that?
Well, we talked a little bit about anger, because my depression would always relapse. It'd be okay for a bit and it would relapse. And then we talked a lot about anger, and actually the anger was a catalyst. I'm like, I'm angry at living this way. I'm angry at living a life that I didn't choose, and not a life that I want to live. I was saying, let's just try. Because before I'd never taken therapy seriously, and I was like, let's just try. I used that anger as a catalyst, and reached out for the right help, and it was got the right coaching and therapy, and it was life changing. So it was really the anger was the catalyst.
I've had those moments. People have said, when you see a mentally ill person talking to themselves out loud on the street, we sort of look at that person funny. But someone told me, those thoughts in your head are you talking to yourself. It's just, it's not your mouth saying it out loud. And I've had much more appreciation for that. And I've had moments where I've spoken to myself in my head. I am not happy. I am happy. Wow, that was interesting. And you have those moments so I think you literally sort of observed, you kind of stepped away from yourself and said to yourself in a way like, this has to stop. I am angry.
Yeah.
And you have to be conscious of that.
Like I projected, I've always been a long-term thinker, think like 5, 10, 20, 50 years in the future. And I'm like projecting out in the future. My life's not going to be that great. And was tired of fighting sometimes like what seemed like endless days of depression. Yeah. And even as far as like a few years ago, I went through a time where it was like every day I got up and I had to choose to live another day. That's how bad it was when I was looking for treatments that would help. And just so rough. But yeah, another thing another connection I made too was there's this mythology of the self-made person. And another connection I made, I looked all the business people I knew and all the people that were very successful, whatever field. I noticed a connection is that they maybe not have said it, but they were the ones that reached out for the most help and got the most help. And there's an unlimited amount of help out there. Actually, you ask people for help, they're kind of flattered. And it's surprisingly the people that are just line up to help you as long as you're coachable and teachable and will put what they say into action. And so I noticed this pattern, really successful people, they all have gotten the most help along the way. Especially in business, because so I'm a big fan. There's a book that changed my life, The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, and actually Bob's a friend of mine now, so well over 1.2 million copies. I read the whole series. Go-Giver Influencer taught me how to connect with people, and actually I host meetings for Bob in the Go-Giver Success Alliance, so you can join that and join us once a week. But over the past couple of years, what happened was, so my mom died. We'd lived together all of my life, so I was devastated. And thanks to all the friends I made in my local meetup groups, I did not have to spend any time alone for the first 6 weeks after she passed. I told that story when David Siegel asked me to give a speech at the Meetup 20th anniversary party the other year. And then that's when I knew my life's mission was to help people figure out how to make friends.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now we've talked about it, but you've got the international friend connection, the organization of good, the friend magnet. Tell me, what is the vision these organizations have? I know we touched on them, but let's get right to it. So I give a quick history of International Friend Connection. I started running one meetup group in 2014, which was something that I never thought I could do, having severe social anxiety, being so shy. But then, wait, David, so 2014, you ran the meetup. What year did you go to the meetup and play the board game and shake?
Oh, that was 2011. That was 2011 when I went to one of the first. And before, maybe about mid 2000s, I went to one meetup and then kind of forgot about it. But I started being in a board game meetup. Then I was in an introverts meetup, and that one closed. But it got deleted before I could take it over because I doubted myself too much for 30 days. So I created my first group, West Michigan Geeks in Grand Rapids. And then 2 years later, created a second one for introverts and shy people. But then what happened was COVID hit, totally devastating. And we could not meet in person. So we were able to meet in parks in the summer, but the winter came around. And I'm like, I'm going to have a horrible relapse of depression if I'm not able to see people just staying at home, only being me and my mom. So what I did was I created a new group, and I figured we'll try to do a Zoom meeting every night. And we'll help each other to get through this COVID lockdown. And I started opening up more groups in more cities. And then we'd get like 100 people a night in a busy night in and out. And the stories were horrible of how isolated people were. People with no history of mental illness were like on their last legs. And I get emails saying, thank God we found these meetings, because otherwise we may not be here. Got many of those people took me aside privately or sent me messages. And so I knew no matter how bad I felt, and there was time during COVID, my depression was relapsing hard, when I didn't feel like doing anything, but I knew I had to keep going because I had to do those meetings every night to get other people through. And that's what drives me now. I've always been a very duty and mission-based person. From being kind of angry and selfish, turned my life around to where I want to help as many people as possible and work with as many people as possible. And personally, I've did like almost 1,850 or almost 1,900 events, and my groups have did thousands of events over the past 10 years. But yeah, that was International Friend Connection, and that's what won me 3 medals from President of the United States. I got a letter of thanks from President Biden back there, and also the Point of Light Award in recognition in 39 countries. So now, Friend Magnet's a new program because it originated because every Monday for about 2 years, I taught a free class, teach people how to overcome social anxiety like I did. So thousands of people went through this free class. I get so many messages, even as little as a week. People are like, my life has changed. The main things were I didn't know how to get out of my head, deal with all those negative thoughts that prevented me from meeting people. Then other things was I didn't know what to say, how to talk to other people. So I taught them all this stuff for free, so much success. And then as I started making more friends in business, they're like, you need to turn this into a class to help people. Because this is how you'll make an income to get off of disability, to pay your medical bills. And you'll be able to use the profits to scale your organization up more and help more people, so that we provide free meetings for people that can't afford to go to the program. And we provide the program for people who can afford to, and we use the profits. Besides helping my own organization, I want to donate a generous portion of the profits to Sheldon Clubhouse locally, which is a mental health charity. Part of Clubhouse International, has 500 clubhouses all over the world to help people with mental illness. Because I was in a business, had a little manufacturing company mid-2000s, didn't work out. Usually in business, you have to fail like 9 or 10 times before you find one that succeeds. That's why most people give up. But my partner, Dave Miller, who's like a dad to me more than my real dad, the rule was if we were in business, we would have to donate a portion of the profits, like 10% to charity. That was the rule for being in business with him. So I learned that valuable lesson. Yeah. And so Friend Magnet is the culmination of that free class. Plus, I worked with psychologists to expand the class to like 6 weeks. So we teach everything from how to get out of your head, overcome those negative thoughts and feelings that are holding you back. And then we teach you how to introduce yourself to people, have conversations with people. We teach you how to change your mindset through practice of like compassion and gratitude. Go away from a negative mindset, maybe judging and having a heart full of like anger and hatred, to really reprogramming that brain. And then we talk about having managing friendships and friend relationships. And then one of the last classes I teach is how to develop a life of meaning and purpose. Because my mission in life, my sense of meaning, is what has kept me alive on days of endless pain, days of endless depression when I had to choose to live another day. It's what has kept me making the choice to be alive every day. And then finally, so I got a dear friend, legendary relationship and dating coach in LA. Her name's Seal, Coach Seal the Deal. And so a while back, we taught a brilliant class of how to meet people in person without using a dating app. And so we throw that in there for week 6. I can take people through the whole program. I give them 2 months of support. You can be in it as long or as little as you like, but we guarantee that we'll continue working with people as long as they need until they beat that social anxiety.
My Yiddish speaking grandmother would say you're an entrepreneur who's also a mensch, which just means just a great guy. So it's
well, thank you.
Fantastic work that you're doing. We got a few minutes left. It's easy for all of us individuals, people all over, to think that we're the only one who suffers, right? From fear and blockers. You mentioned only being in their head, or they don't know how to talk to people, but the people you work with through everything that you just described, what are the obstacles? What are the blockers? What are the fears they routinely suffer from?
Well, it's a lot. All these fears were programmed into us when we were a kid, maybe by peers, parents, messages from society, that you have to be a certain way to be cool, or you're left out, or criticism from parents, criticism from peers. And so we got all these negative messages that were programmed in. And the main blockers is really what's going on in someone's head, that sense of fear. So we got to get a separation from those thoughts and feelings. And that's what a lot of acceptance and commitment therapy methods use, like the mindfulness, the diffusion methods, the anchoring methods, helps you to get out of your head and start taking action. Because the only thing that will make a situation better is taking action. And most people are paralyzed because they don't know how to separate themselves from their thoughts and their feelings. So one thing I learned is that basically our thoughts and our feelings are things that happen to us. Our bodies, like our brain's just part of us, but it's not who we are. It's our mind is a little bit separate. It's that moment to moment sense of consciousness. So whenever I get these anxious thoughts or feelings, I always say, oh, that's the old brain just acting up, telling me things that aren't true. But let's diffuse those thoughts and feelings. Let's give us a little bit of space between them, observe them like a scientist, like we're an outside observer, and let's take action toward the life we want.
David, what is a fear or a blocker that you still have?
Fear or blocker, the same thing when I go to meet people. Same old thoughts from childhood will go through my head. I gotta laugh now because I know so many people and so many people.
So the
that are
board
my
game,
friends and
the board game playing David will come back.
Oh yeah. It'll come back. And so, like you said, it's a muscle. The social anxiety is a muscle. You have to exercise it. Like what I tell people, if I decided to stay home for 6 months, not leave the house, just play video games like I used to, like 12 hours a day, and then after that I would try to go around people, I would get the shakes, probably even going to my own groups again, and that would all come back. So it's a muscle that you got to exercise.
Got to keep at it. And you've been exercising it a lot. It's in a good spot, which enables you, but you got to keep at it. You got
to keep at it.
I'm a sports fan. That's why Steph Curry, the basketball player, still practices before every game and still does things. So, all right. This is a group of, we've got about 2 minutes left. This is a group of non-linear thinkers. How do you view this term non-linear? How do you
non-linear, kind of non-linear, neurodivergent, just kind of people that think a bit differently, maybe outside the norm, but also can see patterns and connections that other people can't.
Yeah,
it is in some ways a double-edged sword. Leaves you a bit different from everybody, but also a gift that you can solve problems that other people can't.
And the pattern is a very important word there, because in business, in life, a lot of predictive analytics, a lot of artificial intelligence, that's all the buzz now, is all about seeing patterns. It's all about seeing this. And then all it does is it just systematizes these patterns. So it looks like this black box of magic, but really what it's doing is it's just seeing the patterns and then
it just sees patterns and connections, which is what people like us have always done. So it's like they're building computers to work with people like us. A lot of times, instead of hiring people like us that could just do it. So it's kind of funny, but we can't fit into the 9 to 5. But I mean, we could see a connection or a pattern in your business systems that may make you a ton of money. But because we don't fit in the 9 to 5, a lot of hiring people are like that cognitive dissonance, not fitting into 9 to 5, but could make us a ton of money. I'm really uncomfortable. Let's not hire them.
Right. And this idea of OCD or ADHD or all these other elements of it, I really look at that as a passion and obsessiveness, and not an obsessiveness in a bad way, but who better than someone who's obsessed with a company's mission or values to work for them, right? All right. If kind of a fun question before we close, if you could snap your fingers, wave a magic wand, whatever it is, and invite anyone, fictional, non-fictional, to come into your world right now, who would these people or this thing be? Fictional, non-fictional?
Oh no. I'm getting put on the spot. That is a very good question.
Who would you pull into your life?
Who would I pull into my life? I'm not sure.
Superhero, All right, I'll let you think about it. What advice or thoughts do you want to give the audience for them to take away? I know you've given a ton of great nuggets throughout, but what advice, thoughts, do more of this, don't do this, do you want the audience to come away with?
Well, I thought about that. Maybe it would be Captain Picard, one of my heroes from Star Trek.
Tell me why. Why would you pull him in?
Well, just a great leader, or any of the other great leaders from history.
Why would you want a great leader? I mean, I know I'm drilling down here, but if you were to,
I've always been attracted to leadership and leaders, and kind of had a desire for leadership, but I wasn't a people person. And I know if you want to make a big impact, you want to impact millions of people, you have to go into leadership.
Interesting. So you saw this muscle sort of laying dormant within you. You wanted to activate it, but you just didn't really know how.
Yeah. And the advice, what I want people to take away is that there is more within you than you know. You just need the right tools to unlock it. And then the thing is, reach out for help. Don't give up. And when you feel like giving up, you need those friends and family that will say, we're not going to let you give up. We will carry you, and then we'll help you crawl again. Then we'll help you walk, and then we'll help you run.
I think what's fascinating also is when you could have easily have given up way back when, you used, ironically, anger to get you out of bed, out of depression, to get on the phone, to call someone for help. So I think that's a great point, that you kind of use whatever you have around you to get you, like you said, to act. So David, thank you. This was fantastic.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here.
Could have talked to you for hours.
Great seeing you today.
And this is...
we could go on for another couple hours, but I know we only got about 30 minutes.
I'll back channel with you and find another time to talk. So David, thank you for joining us.
And thanks to everybody that's in the audience today. Really appreciate the love and support. Hope you have an amazing weekend.
I second that. Everyone, thank you so much. I'm Casey Berman, one of the podcast hosts here at the Octopus Movement. Please check out the other shows we have and all of the great work being done by everyone here, all the way down from Karen and the Dr. Octopus Perry himself, and all of my other fellow hosts, and all of the founding members like David. A lot of fantastic work that is going on here, and we give you snippets of it through the Octopus Movement podcast. My name's Casey Berman. Thank you so much for joining us today.